In February 2022, Kizuna Ai, who was recognized as the world's first viewer, went dormant after her last concert. In the following May, the domestic virtual idol A-Soul rushed to the hot search several times because of the salary of the people in the middle, and the brokerage company behind it was also repeatedly slapped in the face for the so-called virtual idol never collapses. The 2022 of virtual idols is not going well. There is also a dispute over the technical root of two-dimensional virtual people and hyper-realistic virtual people, and even the virtual human industry is full of controversy. Is the virtual human industry already in a bubble? Maybe there are not so many virtual people in the market. In the view of Chen Jian, founder and CEO of the virtual event application operator Superdimension, the domestic virtual track is about to usher in a new inflection point of development. Should we really look at hyperreal virtual humans? What is the future of the virtual human industry? What is the relationship between virtual live broadcasting and the metaverse? Recently, we invited Chen Jian and Yang Hui, Senior Director of Market Ecology of Shengguang, an investor in the A round of KRD Yuan, to talk about the technology and future of virtual and virtual economy. 1. Only by in-depth cooperation with large platforms can we understand their true layout on the virtual track. 2. At present, the virtual human track is overheated, and the bubble is very serious, much like the VR industry in 2016. 3. There is no basis for content-based virtual human, identity-based virtual human, and functional virtual human to prove that the more like a real person, the higher the success rate. 4. The virtual world is the concretization of the imaginary space by human beings through technical means. 5. If the iPhone 3Gs is regarded as the eve of the arrival of the mobile internet, does the Oculus Quest 2, which also has a shipment of 10 million, also represent the eve of the popularization of the virtual world? 1. Hyperrealistic avatars are not the right direction for the industry. Founder Park, is there any reason behind the recent change in the virtual human race from cold to hot? Chen Jian, there are two core views, which may be different from the mainstream views. The first point is that I think the current virtual human race is overheated and the bubble is very serious, much like the VR industry in 2016. Second, if the virtual human is mentioned separately from the application scenario, it is actually a false proposition, and most virtual human projects have no future. The future of virtual humans is just a basic capability of many companies, such as film and television companies, game companies, or metaverse companies that focus on virtual activities. It does not mean that having this capability will lead to success. Underneath any bubble there must be an idea drive. More than 20 years ago, the internet also exploded, and after the bubble burst, it returned to the real and correct direction and development rhythm. Although the VR industry exploded in 2017, the industry developed in a healthier and normal direction and rhythm after the explosion. Virtuals and metaverses also go through this process. I think the inevitability behind development stems from the yearning of human beings for a better, freer and more open world. Many people will wonder why some people like dummies, knowing that there are real people behind the dummies, such as Song Shiren and A-Soul, why do they still like them? This actually means that the IP stamp of a virtual idol or a virtual person has a more perfect personality in the mind of the user. This kind of person setting is not easy to obtain in reality, but the virtual way can better poke at the emotional pain points. Why did the Shanhai Jing exist in ancient times? The ancients who compiled the classic of mountains and seas also knew that there were no such creatures in reality, but why did they compile the classic of mountains and seas? Everyone can understand the metaverse that the ancients realized only by imagination under the technical and objective conditions at that time. With the development of technology, we can use more advanced various 3D technologies, engine technologies, and capture technologies to visualize the things we imagine. Founder Park, how would you define a virtual person? Chen Jian, the definition of virtual human is very broad. According to my knowledge and the general consensus among colleagues, I will classify virtual human into three categories. The first category is content or IP-based avatars, such as the very popular IA, Luyexi, etc., can be defined as content-based or IP-based avatars. The technology-driven way of content-based or IP-based avatars is not absolute, because the creation of content and IP should not be constrained by technical means. The key is whether the content is liked by end users. Many content-based or IP-based avatars are compound drivers of. Luo Tanya's driving method after being acquired by Station B is a composite type, including the results of the pre-made CGI process, the works generated by the user's UGC, and the real-time live broadcast driven by Song Shongren. It is a very typical technology composite driving. IP-based or content-based avatars. The second category is the functional virtual human or service virtual human that investors are most enthusiastic about, driven by AI. The third type of virtual person is the direction we choose, called identity virtual person, which can also be defined as virtual avatar or avatar. For example, the little lion in this live broadcast is my identity avatar and must be driven by me. There should be no identity-based virtual person in the future, because everyone will have their own identity in the virtual world. Founder Park, what do you think of the driving technology behind the virtual human, and the possible development direction? Chen Jian, I think Songshiren is a transitional term that will definitely die out in the future. But it does not mean that AI will replace the people in the middle. If this day comes, it may be the end of mankind. Because Songshiren builds emotional bonds between virtual idols and people, and replaces emotional bonds with AI, human beings are not far from extinction. Just like everyone has a digital identity in the future, there are few active applications of identity virtual people, such as live broadcast and video conference, but they will not live broadcast and video conference every day. Imagine, like Ready Player One, using a virtual identity that fully represents yourself to go shopping, watch exhibitions, shop, watch performances, and feel like calling and shouting with other audiences. This method has a huge imagination space, giving virtual identity a broader application scenario. Even if there are so-called virtual idols, the essence is the metaverse image mapping of idols or shirls. Station B has a very intuitive trend, and many Seiyu and Up masters use avatars to appear on the scene. In the future, there will be qualitative changes in the operation mode of content-based or IP-based virtual idols driven by the people in China, including the stop of Kizuna, and the problems of a soul some time ago. For enterprises, the IP image of a content type or IP type virtual person belongs to the enterprise, but fans are because of the emotions established by the people in the middle, and fans regard him as an identity type virtual person. The cognitive conflict between the two leads to various contradictions. In the future, I think that the virtual idols driven by people in the virtual world will return to traditional economic logic, or the work of brokerage companies. Although it is impossible to develop into a giant like Disney, it will definitely exist, because some users like it, and it is also very good to develop into an entertainment agency such as YG Entertainment or SM Entertainment. Entrepreneurs should stop telling investors that virtual idols will never collapse, and that IP is more powerful in the company's hands. Now investors will no longer believe it. For me, it has always been to look at virtual people from the perspective of the virtual world, rather than looking at the virtual world with virtual people. My goal is a completely open virtual world with high degree of freedom and high interaction, and Player One is my ultimate goal. According to this goal, what content is needed, and then according to the existing technical conditions to judge when the technology can achieve what kind of interaction, etc., and then implement the corresponding application scenarios and products. Founder Park, what do you think of hyper-realistic virtual human beings may be the future development direction of the virtual industry? Chen Jian, first of all, as an entrepreneur, we must always think about what value our technology, products and projects will bring to the market, and why users need our products. Content-based avatars, identity-based avatars, and functional avatars have no basis to prove that the more they resemble real people, the higher the success rate. In contrast to the choice of the big manufacturers, why does a Soul do the two-dimensional style? The word Jump Team can definitely create a hyper-realistic virtual human, and Tencent has also made a very realistic virtual human. Why don't they do hyper-realism when they make IP-type virtual people, but make virtual people with very realistic but cartoon-like faces for watching movies and textures? In the words of the producer, it is to bring a fresh sense of familiarity to the user, allowing the user to experience a very special boundary of virtual reality. Why should fans like virtual idols like real people instead of real idols directly? This is where the logic is confusing. The second is the problem of functional virtual humans. At present, the NLP capabilities of AI are still weak, and they can only carry out functional dialogues in a closed context. The more AI-driven virtual humans are like real people, the more mentally retarded they are, and the lower the tolerance of users. On the contrary, the image is Q-version, cartoon, AI ability is insufficient, and users will be more tolerant. NVIDIA mainly focuses on AI-driven virtual humans, but what they use for demonstrations, whether it is a virtual AI Lao Huang or a virtual assistant who orders food later, are all Q-version cartoon images. Third, for identity-type virtual people, it is a joke to finally break through the physical limitations and be the same virtual person as myself. Market demand is not the more real the better. In some application scenarios, the more realistic the virtual person, the better. For example, AAA console games require a stronger sense of user substitution and immersion, such as the famous Detroit, Become Human, which explores the theme of coexistence between bionic robots and humans. Some special needs require high-fidelity virtual humans. UE5 released the experience demo of The Matrix some time ago. To create a world that is indistinguishable from real and virtual, it is necessary to use hyper-realistic virtual humans. It is undeniable that hyper-realistic virtual human technology is very difficult, but from the perspective of business operation, as an entrepreneur, it is necessary to find out whether the hyper-realistic virtual human can play a catalytic role in the selected application scenario. Many hyper-realistic avatars have the uncanny valley effect. Super Dimension is very famous for being a virtual idol. Many people think that we can only be a two-dimensional person. In fact, we are better than many teams to be a realistic virtual person. But we did not do hyperrealism in the absolute sense, but did beauty realism, which is what human beings want to be better and more perfect. We don't advocate hyperrealism too much, it can be closer to reality, such as the well-known Fuba star pupil. Never define a virtual human as the more realistic the more chance of success. If you have unique technology, you can greatly reduce the technical threshold of hyper-realistic virtual human. And the simulation degree of the ontology is very high, it is possible. However, if it is through the DCC process, through fine 3D production and continuous grinding of details, to create enough real people, if this ability is regarded as its core competitiveness, it will definitely be slapped by the market. O2 virtual track coming soon, ushering in an inflection point of development. Founder Park, can you leave out VR and AR and directly create a virtual world? Chen Jian, yes. In 2020, we have done a sufficient research and analysis on similar products in Japan, and there are two sample products, Cluster and VARC. Cluster pays more attention to the RTE, real-time interaction, experience, emphasizing that each user must have an avatar. The avatar that represents the user can complete more behaviors in the virtual space. Whether users use VR terminals is not what they care about most. They have mobile terminals, PC terminals, VR side. VARC puts more emphasis on the VR experience of the whole process, but lacks multiple interactions, and cannot feel the users watching the performance together. The user waving the light stick is only a standalone behavior. The ideal after full experience is the full immersion of VR devices and the high-dimensional interaction of RTE. However, it is not easy to meet the two conditions at the same time. Domestic VR devices are all-in-one machines, and the computing power bottleneck is greater than that of mobile terminals. First of all, VR glasses need to be counted as two eyes, and the edges have distortion and deformation, and the resolution is particularly large, which requires the calculation of PPI visual density. Running more than 60 frames or even 90 frames is not considered dizzy. The 3D scene runs on the 2D screen, but the RTE is maximized. Insist on using VR equipment, focus on single-player experience, and do not focus on multi-person interaction. The continuous immersion of the former is obviously stronger in virtual activities. If the user only gets immersion through the light energy stimulation of the VR device, the whole activity will be a lonely existence, and the immersion will easily subside without interaction with other users. But in 3D scenes, users can walk freely, control behavior, and interact with many users in real time, and this sense of immersion is sustainable. Under the constraints of objective conditions, we give priority to multi-person real-time interaction, take RTE as the entry point, and also make the possibility of porting to the VR side. In August this year, the VR terminal will be transplanted, and there will be no rush to land on the C terminal. Local event scenes will be preferentially selected for experimental activities, and large-scale activities will be preferentially run on the host and mobile phones. Founder Park, what are your thoughts on the claim by cluster founder Naoto Kato that the metaverse is important to build an economic circle? Chen Jian, many people think that the metaverse is just a game, but it is not. The metaverse uses a game engine, and the visual and interactive experience is highly similar to the game, but the most essential difference between the metaverse and the game is that the content in the metaverse will be dominated by users in the future, while the game will be dominated by developers. The game is an extremely heavy PGC content. The metaverse will be dominated by UGC in the future. The world is built by everyone and cannot be built by only one company. Some people joke that Roblox is a 4,399 minigame platform, but it is not, because Roblox has the basic concept of creating content by users. Roblox has recently had a large number of application scenarios other than games, such as virtual brand concept stores, virtual chambers of commerce, virtual exhibitions, etc. I think that judging metaverse products and pseudo-metaverse products with the concept of metaverse mainly depends on whether it supports user creation, whether it has enough powerful low-code tools, and whether there are more complete engine scripting tools that can allow users in different cities to participate building. The application of our virtual events will also start the public beta in the near future. The main difference between the internal beta and the public beta is that the internal beta is all PGC content, but during the public beta, we will launch some low-code tools so that some capable users can publish it. Or list virtual assets, and also support transactions between users. Our strategy is different from that of Cluster. Cluster is to do all PGC content first, and then launch low-code tools after a year or two, and we plan it synchronously when we plan the entire product. This is also the time machine theory just mentioned. We can directly digest the existing business models in leading regions by reducing the cost of trial and error. Founder Park, what is the essence of a virtual world? Chen Jian, defined in the words of comparative philosophy, the virtual world is the materialization of the imaginary space by human beings through technical means. Founder Park, what is the basis for Superdimension to judge that the domestic virtual track is about to usher in an inflection point of development? Chen Jian, it's not that we think that the capital outlet has arrived. Our judgment is that the virtual world is changing in the terminal consumer market. Virtual idols are only a small part of the virtual world. At present, the large virtual world can see signs of inflection points on the terminal. Take 3 data as an example. The first is the virtual live broadcast area of Station B from 2019 to 2022. The data shows a 60-fold increase, indicating that the consumption of virtual human content by end users has increased exponentially. The second is that Meta's Oculus Quest 2 shipped 10 million units last year and now has more than 15 million units. The mobile internet took the iPhone 4 as a watershed, and the birth of the iPhone 4 marked the arrival of the mobile internet era. But before the iPhone 4, there was a model called the iPhone 3Gs. The iPhone 3Gs was a very critical inflection point device. It was the first smartphone to reach 10 million shipments worldwide, marking the move from a handful of digital enthusiasts to the masses. If the iPhone 3Gs is regarded as the eve of the arrival of the mobile internet, does the Oculus Quest 2, also with a shipment of 10 million, also represent the eve of the popularization of the virtual world? The third is the rise of digital fashion. Hyperdimension is not only a second dimension, we are focusing on the virtual track. It's just that it is impossible to satisfy all users under the current technical conditions. Certain user groups are more receptive to virtual consumption. Two-dimensional users are a group, VR enthusiasts are a group, and so are the recently appeared digital fashion enthusiasts. In essence, digital fashion brings more possibilities to some avant-garde users, because it can break through the limitations of material technology and physics, and have more possibilities in the exploration of beauty. Digital fashion has now become the new social currency. From these 3 dimensions, it is felt that the inflection point is coming, not because of the capital's outlet and other reasons. Founder Park, what is the future development plan of Superdimension? Chen Jian, at present, PGC activities are the main activities, and I hope to be the benchmark for the experience effect of virtual activities. Next year, on the one hand, various creative teams will be introduced more openly to create events, content assets, etc. based on our virtual event application. On the one hand, it will more aggressively deploy more application scenarios other than the two-dimensional element, and the current market response is very good. Next year, there will be more layouts and attempts in exhibitions, electronic music, art, fashion, etc. Strive to create a new form of platform in 2024, with many creators creating content, activities, and free transactions. Partners want to build virtual spaces or virtual events, and a large number of creators will take over when they publish tasks on our ecosystem, instead of requiring our team to complete all event content now. 3 online virtual events still need technology upgrade. Founder Park, how does Superdimension support virtual events? How is it different from regular live events? Chen Jian, we will provide some scene templates to give users some simple DIY collocations. For example, the booth in the virtual comic exhibition, and the outdoor dance scene. Compared to the concert in Fortnite, the action on our side is real-time and does not need to be pre-recorded. In general virtual live broadcasts, the platform captures and pushes video images, and the user sees the same image, but in a 3D virtual scene, each user sees a different perspective. Remote synchronization is required for all users in the scene, which requires the concurrent processing capability of very large throughput data. At present, the officially guided activities are mainly based on virtual performances and virtual comic exhibitions, and if we are the organizers, the types of activities will be more abundant, such as disco, esports, watching ball games, museums and exhibition halls. As long as there are real-time user interaction activities in the three-dimensional space, the online scene can be migrated. Founder Park: what technical challenges do virtual events face today? Chen Jian: at present, there are two bottlenecks in virtual activities. One is computing power, because the pictures of the virtual event are not generated on the performance side. If it is on the performance side, the performance can be upgraded if it is not enough, but the users of the virtual event interact with data in real time, and the pictures are generated on the user side. The configuration of mainstream terminals will directly affect the user experience. How to run multiple avatars, 3D scenes and a large amount of real-time data interaction is a difficult problem in rendering the bottom layer and asset optimization, especially cross-terminal rendering. The second is the field of RTE, real-time interaction. If you are doing a complex virtual show, the performers are captured in real time, and there will be a lot of data to synchronize. The first is the most basic speaking voice, the voice interaction involved in RTC, real-time communication, or the 3D spatial sound effect, and the volume should be judged according to the user's distance. If the terminal is a VR device, it is necessary to determine the direction, and the amount of computation in this part is also very large. The other is the user status, whether the user is applauding or walking forward and backward, which involves the synchronization of user status. We do not use the general solution for online games, because online games are not suitable for open virtual world. NET's SDRTN solution has been comprehensively compared, and the SDRTN solution of SoundNet is the most suitable for metaverse applications. Also, although it is not a video screen that is synchronized, in a virtual scene with a virtual screen, such as a virtual esports hall, the game screen is played in real time, which involves the transmission of video, and the delay must be controlled to milliseconds. There is an immersive sense of instant interaction, so there will still be the existence of RTP, real-time transport protocol. The last is super-specific, higher-dimensional structural data that SoundNet is also studying. The actions and expressions of the user's avatar are captured in real time, and are mapped to all users present at the same time. The data throughput and computational load are very large. The whole body bones, hands and fingers of a complete virtual character plus the most basic 55 expression channels are calculated at 60 frames per second, and the data volume is more than 100 M per second, which may not be transmitted by 6G technology. It took us several years to iterate, pressing 100 M per second to 1 M per second, which can be transmitted concurrently on the internet. But if there are two performers and 100 spectators capture the action of the call, the interaction of data will increase geometrically. So I think RTE has huge room for upgrades, including the most basic audio technology. You may think that audio communication is very mature, but in high-dimensional real-time interaction scenarios, RTC audio communication alone has huge issues to be studied and overcome. In this regard, professional RTC manufacturers like SoundNet are needed to help the industry move forward. Develop. Yang Hui: from the perspective of my industry, many pain points encountered in the perspective of technology research and development represent the status quo of real-time interactive development. As an independent concept, real-time interaction is different from traditional RTC real-time audio and video. The biggest difference is that it was previously emphasized that online connectivity and semantic communication can be achieved. But now it is necessary to transmit a variety of data at the same time to reflect the space between audio and video and virtual scenes, the relationship between virtual props and virtual characters, anchors and users, etc., to realize the presence of fans at the idle scene. The data transmitted at the same time includes the idle's actions, expressions, the status of fans, the interaction between fans and idols, the relationship between fans and space, space and dynamic images, etc. This is a very complex scene. At present, in the real-time interactive industry, a considerable amount of new scenarios are born every day, such as real-time invigilation in the education industry, operation examination certification in vocational education, traditional digital transformation of finance and other industries. From the most basic technical architecture to the optimization of one-way technology, especially the optimization of high-dimensional and high-concurrency scenarios such as structured data, it is a complex system engineering problem. However, due to the continuous improvement of the actual experience, users no longer accept the processing method of dividing rooms. The continuous expansion of the scale requires an online experience without a sense of boundaries, without the span of geographical location, and the feeling of tens of millions of people serving the same server. It is really possible to see the people next to the scene and make calls excitedly, instead of brushing out other rooms after a period of time. Newcomer. Each real-time interactive end-user accesses the site in a different way, so the real-time interactive technology is required to be compatible with different PC terminals, mobile phone models, system version numbers and different hardware device versions, and the requirements for compatibility are getting higher and higher. How to better explore the experience adaptation and interaction mode of terminal equipment is technically demanding. In addition, some actions in the industry's ecology are also required, which is also a new trend that has been booming in the industry recently. Each company is enriching functional components, involving many upstream and downstream players who interact in real time, including image-enhanced beauty, fans uploading their own avatars, components that require beauty or motion capture or RTM real-time signaling to display the image of fans, including the use of a whiteboard as a call board, etc. Each function and component is developed by a dedicated team. We are compatible with all technologies, turning the traditional one-way operation into ecologicalization, and turning the scene innovation of ecological upstream and downstream enterprises into the most important part of the ecological pressure play of Shengwang. These also place high demands on all practitioners, application developers and underlying technology providers in real-time interaction. Founder Park, what are the future trends in the live interactive report recently released by Sound.net? Yang Hui, first of all, as an emerging concept, real-time interaction is developing very rapidly. From the first real-time audio and video industry conference in China in 2015, to the present 6 or 7 years, the penetration rate of real-time interaction has reached 30% to 40%. We can see in the future to higher underlying technologies. It can be said that we will see the complexity and rapid growth of real-time interaction for a long time. From the perspective of industry development trends, real-time interaction will be a very impressive industry. It is expected that in 2025, it will be a 100 billion level market globally, which will leverage live broadcasts, virtual idols, and enterprise remote collaboration. Industry? In addition, there are hundreds of applications now, and the huge industry map covers dozens of industries or even hundreds of thousands of scenarios. In recent years, more and more offline scenes have been seamlessly connected to online, not just a simple substitute for offline, but online makes people feel immersive. The threshold for developers is also getting lower and lower. Thanks to the joint efforts of the entire industry, various functional components and open source software developers, the development environment and small components required by developers are maturely provided to everyone. There is also software eats the world. We believe that the future software, infrastructure related to real-time interaction, edge computing, network-optimized AI algorithms, and the real-time interactive experience after codec coding matures will be better, and the credit of the software will become more and more bigger. In addition, we will have more experiences beyond reality, such as interacting with idols in a virtual place, watching her sing at close range, and her dress can change with the mood, which is difficult to achieve in the real world, but it can be achieved under the conditions of real-time interaction. Experiences that transcend the natural feeling of reality may be seen in the short term. In addition, under the technical framework, we can realize the experience of global server, no division of interaction, unlimited number of people, etc. This is a development and predictable trend that can be seen at close range. For the trend of enterprise operation, more and more practitioners and large manufacturers in the real-time interactive industry will build their own vertical field ecology, serve more application developers, and jointly contribute to the prosperity of the industry. Founder Park, what technological breakthroughs in real-time interaction are you most concerned about? Chen Jian, at present, it is still a high concurrency streaming media technology. For example, we have opened an RTC voice channel. It is no problem for 30,000 people to be online at the same time on one channel, but the number of people who can open the microphone is limited. Because the sending and receiving of data are co-concepts, if there are a lot of users sending and receiving data in a channel, there will be a geometric increase. At present, in the communication channel, the number of concurrency received is relatively high, but whether it is audio, video, or the structure data of motion capture, surface capture, there are still many limitations in terms of sending. We hope that there will be a major breakthrough in sending in the RTC field. For example, if you hold an online virtual comic exhibition, the density of users visiting the exhibition in the venue is very large, and with the migration of the exhibition route, the number of people who are on the same screen keeps changing. At present, we solve the problem through the product side, divide a large space into many areas, use the number 1 line when entering the number 1 area, and automatically switch to the number 2 line when reaching the number 2 area, which solves the limitation of the number of people who can open mic at the same time. To avoid the limitations of technical conditions from the perspective of product design, we still hope that the bottom layer of technology can give us more room for development and less compromises. 04 Select virtual live as entry to the virtual world. Founder Park, what is the origin of the name Super Dimension? Chen Jian, there is a vision to set the company's name as Super Dimension, hoping to break the dimensional wall through technology and create a virtual world that transcends the dimensional boundary. Beyond the dimension without boundaries, the abbreviation is the Super Dimension. Founder Park, looking at your personal experience, you majored in architecture in college. Why did you choose architecture? How did architecture help you start a business? Chen Jian, architecture is not my personal choice, because I took the university entrance exam in 1997. At that time, parents' opinions were very important to their children's choice of majors. Unlike now, students can choose their own majors. My family thinks that I have good grades in mathematics, physics and chemistry, and I can draw. Architecture is a popular major that can make money, so I chose architecture. There was no product manager major before, and architecture is the discipline that has the most logical training in product thinking among the majors I know. The Architectural Society analyzes the needs of users, produces task books similar to product requirements, decomposes tasks, formulates timelines, and some interdisciplinary collaborations, such as civil engineering, environmental gardening, etc. Now the product needs to be cross-client, and the server must be cross-Arch UI and so on. This part of the learning experience is very helpful for me to work as a product manager in the virtual industry. Although I am a founder, my role in the company is more like a product manager, which is also the accepted position of the team. Founder Park, what kind of cognition were you based on when you started your business in the early days? Chen Jian, if the time machine theory is defined as a methodology, it can be said that this is the key methodology that supports my entrepreneurial decision-making for more than 10 years. On the one hand, studying architecture gave me a product manager mindset. On the other hand, architecture is actually the earliest industry in China to apply 3D technology and engines on a large scale, not the film and television or game industry that everyone remembers. My first two startups were related to architecture, using 3D technology as a foundation. For the third time I started my business, I didn't want to have a direct relationship with architecture, so I considered combining it with my personal interest in the second dimension. Time machine theory. The time machine theory put forward by Sun Zhengyi make full use of the unbalanced development of different countries and industries, and then develop relatively backward markets after gaining experience in developed markets, as if sitting on a time machine and able to travel through the past and future. In 2013 and 2014, the domestic internet was not very developed, and the second dimension was still a niche term, and maybe 99% of investors had never heard of it. In this case, it is difficult to find valuable references in the existing market, so I went to Hong Kong to conduct market research. There is a Japanese Bandai product in the Hong Kong market, our CardDAS, which combines collectible cards with our technology and two-dimensional IP. Combine. This time, I want to continue the 3D virtual technology and combine my personal hobbies. Based on the leading products in the Japanese market collected in Hong Kong, I will bring this idea back to the mainland to start a business. So my third business started in 2014. This entrepreneurship cuts into the field of R and VR, and at the same time needs to have a better understanding of the two-dimensional culture. The actual entry was in 2015, with the rise and development of many domestic industries, such as our /VR industry, secondary element, mobile internet, etc. Founder Park, have you ever stepped on the pit in the early stage of entrepreneurship? Chen Jian, the biggest pit I have stepped on is the loss of the original intention in the entrepreneurial mentality in 2016. Many things revolve around the so-called outlet of capital, and forget to do projects and what value products can bring to users in the end. In this situation of mental imbalance, many wrong decisions have been made, and serious misjudgments have been made on the landing process of VR on the seaside. I often joke that this is the 3.5th time to start a business. I will have my own thoughts on this startup. No matter how hot the capital is and how the media is touting, I will calmly think about the core value that the direction of my business can bring to users. Why the market and users choose our projects and products. The second point is to accurately predict the time node of the technology landing. If you want to wait for the technology to mature and then intervene, it will definitely lag behind, and there will be no chance. If you are too optimistic about the technology landing and make a wrong prediction, it will also bring a devastating blow. The 3.5th startup entered the virtual track. After replanning and positioning in 2017, I am very proud of sticking to my choice direction and attitude rhythm regardless of the voice of capital. On several occasions, the development time point of the industry and the time point of technology landing have been predicted very accurately, and the corresponding R&D layout can be carried out 1 year to 1.5 years in advance. In 2016, a huge decision-making mistake was made in the field of R and VR, which led to the burning of all the 20 million raised, and the team dropped from more than 100 people to more than 30 people. In this case, I am very grateful to the investor for the 3 million life-saving round, which allowed me to transform. There was no financing for the next 5 years. With this key 3 million, in 2017, he bet on the virtual human live broadcast track, which not only solved the problem of survival, but also solved the problem of development. Through the revenue in the market, the revenue has also increased 10 times, which has a lot to do with the theory of time migration. At that time, the reference and benchmarking line was the Japanese market. Founder Park, when you first decided to transition to virtual live broadcasting, did you think this field was relatively small at the time? Chen Jian, the principle of choice at that time was a small incision and a big scene. First of all, the entry point was very small, because there was no other choice at that time, less than 3 million funds and 20 to 30 people. It was impossible to choose a big track, the key was survival. But survival is only a means, not an end. Entrepreneurship is for development. Starting from a small incision can solve the problem of survival as quickly as possible. Although the second point is a small incision, the important thing is the live broadcast of virtual people or tuber at that time, which allows me to see many possibilities in the future. First, virtual IP will change the form of fan interaction. Short videos can be used for high-frequency output, and live broadcasts can be used to interact with fans and audiences in real time. At the same time, it is possible to change the way IP is created. In addition, 2017 is a critical time inflection point for the industry, with the rise of live broadcasts and short videos. One of the reasons why VTuber live broadcast is very vertical is that it can solve the survival problem in a short time, and there are more possibilities for subsequent development. It is also because in 2017, that it was all in on the VTuber live broadcast. When it was launched in 2018, it immediately signed major customers such as NetEase, Tencent, Reading, and Migu. After half a year of promotion, the team gradually moved towards a state of break-even. Founder Park, in the early stage, you mainly focused on the top business. What experience did you accumulate? Chen Jian, there are several important accumulations. The first is to make our products, technologies and team experience very mature. Second, when doing business on the C side, past B side cooperation will play a very good feedback role. Because the C end business needs to cooperate with some platforms, many of which are former customers, they are very clear about our technical capabilities, execution, aesthetics and control of end users, giving us a lot of trust, and cooperation will be smoother. Third, we have done a lot of B-side business in the past, especially the cooperation with internet platforms, which has given us a high and comprehensive industry perspective. Only with in-depth cooperation with large platforms can we understand their true layout on the virtual track. For the entrepreneurial team, how to identify the incision and positioning plays a key role in the development of the gap while surviving. If you understand the layout of large factories through the media, either the information is lagging behind, or a lot of information is packaged, which is not necessarily true, at least not complete, and many core information cannot be reported by the media.